Thomas?
What's up, brother?
How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. It's good to have you on. So basically just what we'll start with, just give people a little bit of background, and then you can just kind of launch into it.
All right. Well, first of all, Tommy, thanks so much. The platform and kind of the whole group you've developed, all the guys, great medium, great platform. So thanks for putting this together and inviting me. My name is Jimmy DeFalco, and I'm a recovering drug addict. I'll kind of go a little bit through, my life story. I won't get too much into detail, but then I'll kind of talk about a little bit about the four main concepts. I'll do a deep dive into those that were really able to create true change within myself to where I don't have to think about being different anymore. I don't have to think about not doing a pill today. I don't have to think about waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym. It's just who I am at my core now. So basically, I was born and raised in Orlando, Florida. I grew up in a very affluent home. I would like to say I kind of grew up in a Wolf of Wall Street type of environment. My father made millions of dollars year after year, but he also partied with hardcore drugs, alcohol, and strippers, on a daily, if not weekly basis. I saw all of this growing up, and I wanted to emulate, what my father was doing. He wasn't living in a trailer park. He had multiple houses, yachts, limos. And so I saw the way he was living his life, and I wanted to be exactly like him. He did, my father introduced me to a lot of substances at a young age. Gave me my first beer around 8 or 9, smoked a joint with him around 15 or 16. He even bought me an escort in New York City when I was 14 years old. So my belief system started to form around money, drugs, girls, partying, and fighting. That's what I truly thought was the path to happiness. And back at that time as a teenager and in my young 20s, that's what I truly thought a man was defined by, how he handled those metrics in those areas of his life. So basically I graduated from Florida State University in 2008, and I was ready to take over my father's company, work there for a few years and, then take over the company. I was going to party harder and make more money than he ever fucking did. It was going to be epic, right? But shortly after I graduated, as most of you know, one of the largest recessions in America hit, and my family lost everything. I said my father made a lot of money, but if he made 1.5 one year, we'd spend 1.8. So when the recession hit and a lot of his clients were out of business, we lost everything really quick. And it was a really tough time on everybody, but especially on me, because it fell on my shoulders to open up a new company and try to save the family business, because my dad had to shut down his and had too much bad tax debt associated with his name. So I opened up a company. We grinded for about 18 months, barely getting by, while our houses are getting foreclosed on, our cars are getting repossessed. And this is the time about where I started taking Xanax, or clozapam, which is a generic form of Xanax. And my father actually taught me to snort it. He's like, "Oh, snorting it is better. That's how you get the real effects of it." So I was so stressed, so depressed at the time. The Xanax kind of eased my nerves, my anxiety, and allowed me to work a little bit. Around that same time, I get a letter in the mail from the IRS, and I owe them $40,000 in payroll taxes. I was a 21-year-old kid. I was letting my father handle the books. I trusted him, and he wasn't paying the IRS. So I quickly shut down the company, and this threw my father into a rage. So much so that he shows up at my house about a week later at 6 a.m. in a crack-induced rage. And he literally kicks my front door off of its hinges, coming to fight me, because he was mad that I closed the company down. I didn't want to fight my father, but I had to protect myself. I ended up knocking him out unconscious. And during the fight, my friend's pit bull jumped up, bit a hole through my ear. It was just a whole crazy experience. I remember literally picking my father's unconscious body up from under the armpits, dragging him to my driveway and dropping him there, waiting for the cops to come pick him up. We didn't talk for a few years, but we kind of been able to mend our relationship a little bit. But that's neither here
Is
nor
he in
there.
recovery?
No, he's still messed up. That's why I mended the relationship with him a little bit to where we have an open line of communication, but I keep him at an arm's distance.
Yeah, you kind of have to, because you got to be careful how you anchor people that are, you know, in that life still.
Yeah, like he'll call me. He called me about a month ago, and I answer. I said, Jimbo, what the fuck happened last night? And I haven't seen him in like weeks. And I'm just like, I wasn't with you last night, Dad. I don't know what happened to you last night. But he was convinced I was partying with him last night. So it just, you know, he's prescribed like 200 Xanax a month.
Right.
Or like 150 or something.
Yeah, I also had abused benzos, and man, that will just eat your mind away, like your memory, your personality, all that stuff. That stuff's rough. People,
Yeah,
it shouldn't be prescribed for regular use. It should be only acute. Like if you're gonna fly on a plane, you have a panic attack, and you just can't handle it otherwise. Okay, here's one for that one limited purpose. You have to give a huge presentation. Okay, here's half of one for that. But like every day, just to like live life, it's so bad because it starts to cause what it's supposed to treat.
Yeah, exactly. Like I remember when I used to get to the bottom of my pill bottle and I didn't have my script for another week to refill, the anxiety and the angst that I would have, you know, not being able to have my Xanax, I would do any and everything, you know, to get money, to call, whatever I had to do to buy them off the streets, to, you know, ease that anxiety, and it becomes a dependence. And you're exactly right. When my first psychiatrist and my father told me to go to get them, he retired. So I went to a new guy, and he was like, wait, you've been on these for 5 years and he's never decreased the dose. He's never done. I'm like, no, just give me my fucking script, man. You know, like that's what the other guy did. But he's like, no, we're going to wean you off. Like if you started these at 22 years old, by 50, your brain's going to be mush, you know? So yeah, definitely shouldn't be prescribed every day, especially when that takes 4 or 5 sticks a day.
Right.
Like that's ridiculous. So after me and my father kind of got into, you know, that battle, you know, I was faced with a very adverse situation. And when faced with adversity in life, you know, we all have an important decision to make. Adversity can either do 2 things to us. It can make us bitter, or it can get us better. It'll either break you or it'll make a new you. And that completely is your decision and your choice. And whether you get bitter or better is determined by how you handle 3 areas of your life, or 3 different things. And you can handle these 3 different things no matter what situation you're going through, no matter, you know, how good, bad, or indifferent your experience you're having may be. You can always control what you're focusing on, what things mean to you, and what you do next. You know, at the time, I didn't realize I could always control those things. So I chose to focus on everything my family had lost. I chose this meant that we were unlucky and God didn't want us to be happy. So I'm sure you guys could guess what I decided to do. I decided to drink and party my ass off to change the way I felt about my current circumstances. And, you know, that obviously only led to worse circumstances. I have, you know, scars all over my face. My nose is all messed up, not from fighting, but from falling on my fucking face. I would just black out constantly all the time with the Xanax, which made it easier to black out. I was dating a girl at the time. She ended up getting pregnant, and I didn't want to have a baby at the time, made it well known, but thank God she decided to have the baby. I decided to do the right thing. I moved out of downtown Orlando into the suburbs, and this is where my addiction really shifted from like alcohol and cocaine in the party scene to snorting Xanax and Oxycontin alone in the bathroom. And these 2 drugs, when they grabbed a hold of me, they grabbed a hold of me so fucking quick. I didn't care about anything. I was lying, cheating, stealing from everyone I knew and loved. I didn't care about anything. If it came down to feeding my son or snorting a pill, I would choose snort a pill and figure out how to feed my son later. It was a pathetic existence. So Julie eventually saw what was going on after about 1.5 years, almost 2 years of the heavy abuse. And she didn't even know I was on oxys at the time. Every time I'm nodding out,
Oh yeah, you're like, that Xanax is strong today, man.
Exactly. I just blamed it on the Xanax. So when she told me it was time to go to rehab, I came clean in the detox waiting area. I remember. You know, I remember her letting me smoke a bowl and like snort my last pill, you know, as we were, you know, going there. And I broke down. I told her what was going on. And that was when I got into rehab. Hold on, let me get my dog outside just real quick.
Sure.
Go. All right, sorry. So where was I?
You got to the detox center.
Yeah, when I got to rehab after a few days in detox, I was angry. I was pissed. And at first I was pissed off at everyone else. I was still blaming, you know, not taking responsibility for where I was. It's like, all right, like, you guys scared me enough. I get it. I got a fucking problem. Now let me out of here. I'm good. You know, I still didn't realize how bad the situation got. But after a few days, probably about a week after being clean, I woke up and it just all hit me at once. Like, fuck, this is all my fault. And all of that pain and anguish was really difficult to deal with. But I'll talk to you guys in a minute about why that pain is good and why that pain can create a better life for yourself in the long run. When I got out of rehab, I thought I was good to go. You know, I lost my house and my car while I was in rehab because I couldn't work. So my girlfriend, my 2-year-old son, and I, we moved into a condo, the same condo I'm calling you from right now. And at first it was great, but then I started getting back on social media. I started comparing myself to others, where I was at this stage in my life opposed to my friends. And I started feeling sorry for myself, playing the victim again, which is never a winning formula. And I started using again, probably relapsed at least a dozen times, maybe more. And Julie eventually kicked me out of that house. So I had nowhere to go because I alienated everyone from my addiction. So I went to my father's house, which was not a good decision, because instead of trying to help build me up and get my life back on track, he bought a whole bunch of he bought a whole bunch of coke, a whole bunch of pills, and we got high together for a week straight. And this week was the most painful, gut-wrenching, excruciating time of my life. I remember waking up at like 2 in the afternoon. I would literally just wake up, snort a Xanax or two, and go back to sleep, just so I didn't have to feel like the hurt and the pain that I was going through. Just being awake was just like too much. So, but I'm grateful for the pain, again, that I experienced that week, and I'll explain why to you guys in just a minute. So eventually, I didn't think it could get any worse. I'm like, all right, this is it. I've hit rock bottom. It can't get any worse, until Julie calls me. She's fucking pregnant again. And I didn't understand, right? I couldn't take care of myself. I couldn't take care of the son that I already had. You know, God just took him away from me, or, you know, I wasn't allowed to see him anymore. And now he's putting another kid into my life. I didn't get it. I felt like it was all happening to me instead of because of me. And I remember falling to my knees one night and just screaming at God. I was like, God, why? You know, why are you doing this to me? Like, what have I done to deserve all this pain? But it wasn't God that was doing it to me. You know, it was simply the decisions I made and the actions that I took that landed me where I was that day. But I hadn't made that connection yet.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, I'm like, that's it. I can't take care of 2 kids. I can't even take care of myself. I'm going to take my life. I started slitting my wrist very superficially, you know, barely bleeding, not deep enough, but still scary stuff. I shared these thoughts with a friend. He called the cops, and I was Baker acted involuntarily in a mental health facility.
For a lot of Europeans that are in the channel, basically what happens in the United States is if somebody calls in a story to the cops and you're a danger to yourself or others, they can either Baker Act you or Marchman Act you, depending on if it's, you know, related to mental health or substances. And it's called involuntary commitment. It's a civil commitment. So it's not like you're arrested in a criminal charge, but they'll put you in a place for a couple days.
Yeah, so they put me in a mental health facility, you know, with padded walls, all of these crazies walking around, which a place where I guess I belonged at the time.
Right.
But obviously a place where, you know, I didn't truly belong.
Right.
And that was I've been in many of those facilities throughout my addiction and my alcoholism and everything. It's probably my third or fourth time in one of those facilities. But this time it was just something different. Like something clicked in me. And I walked out of there. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. I can't live this way any longer. And over the next 18 months, I completely transformed everything about my life, like spiritually, emotionally, physically. I repaired the relationships that I, had tarnished. But after about 18 months of getting everything back on track, I still felt like unfulfilled. I still felt like there was something missing. I checked all of the boxes, society says you should have to be happy, but I still wasn't there. So I started asking myself, what's my passion? What's my purpose? What am I truly meant to do with my life? And if you're searching for your passion, your calling, or just an answer to any life question, start asking yourself out loud or just internally, because your subconscious mind is very fucking powerful. And even though you're not actively thinking about it consciously, if you ask yourself enough throughout the day a couple times consistently over weeks and maybe even months, eventually your subconscious mind will find an answer for you. Because when you're sleeping, when you're not even consciously thinking about it, your subconscious mind is trying to find an answer to that question. So all of a sudden, after asking this question to myself for a month or so, it just smacks me right in the face. I finally had an answer to the question I was asking God, like, why? Why me? It became so clear and apparent that the answer is what I'm doing right now. This is why. I went through all of that pain and adversity, addiction, heartache. Everything that I went through was so I could come out on the other end and show you guys today and the rest of the world that true change from within is possible. I always used to just accept how I was. Well, this is just, how I am. I can't do anything about it, which is just bullshit, which is just not true. You can always control who you are and who you want to become, by your thoughts and your actions. So I made the decision right then and there that I wanted to become, a motivational speaker and a life coach. And so I started asking myself, like, damn, well, how was I really able to change after trying for nearly a decade? And then why were these 18 months different? Like,
Right.
What did I do? And there became 4 apparent reasons or concepts that I learned and I kind of utilized without even really knowing it at the time to change my belief system to, everything you do is dictated by your belief system, who you believe you are, how you believe you fit in the world, and what you believe that you're capable of. And I was able to shift my belief system to who I was, how I viewed myself, to change all of the decisions I made and the actions that I was taking. And the 4 concepts I was able to use are accountability, getting clear on your vision and taking massive action to get there, visualization, and getting active. So for accountability, that's was something brand new to me. It was something I never took accountability for where I was. But, that week at my father's house was kind of where I finally made the connection, where I took 110% accountability for where my life was. I said I was happy that I experienced that pain. Everyone says that, pain is the catalyst for change. You go through enough pain, you'll change. But I think that's bullshit. It's not 100% accurate, because I experienced pain for 8-9 years and I never changed. Yeah. Why?
There's few people who have the capacity to suffer more than addicts when they're suffering.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the reason why I suffered and I never changed was because I was blaming that suffering on my father, on God, right, on circumstance or bad luck, and going back to your belief system. So my true belief, like at my core, was that it was not my fault. I was put in this situation. I lost everything right after college. I was in a bad situation. It's not my fault.
Right. These things are all happening to you, like you said, instead of because of you.
Yeah. But, the first thing happened to me, losing everything. Right. I made every decision after that. And everything that happened after that was because of me. And And so, sorry, I just lost track for a second.
Accountability. We're on accountability.
Yeah,
and
accountability.
Accountability. That week at your dad's house, you were talking about being thankful for the pain also. So those were the two.
Yeah, so it was the first time that I truly made the connection between the decisions I was making and the pain that I was experiencing. Because before, like I said, I was blaming everyone else. And if that's your true belief, like in your heart, in your mind, that your life is the way it is because of someone else, what motivation do you have to make changes? What incentive do you have to self-assess yourself and look at different areas where you can get better or improve or make different decisions? You know, you have absolutely no motivation to do that, no incentive, because deep down, it's not even your fucking fault anyway, right? It's someone else's fault. So like 95% of our decisions and all the actions we take are subconsciously derived. You know, we only make 5% of our decisions with our conscious mind. We're like running these programs. So if that's your belief, when you go to make a bad decision, oh shit.
What's up? Did you lose Cameron for a second?
I just lost you for a second. Hold on.
I can still see you.
Okay, there we go. All right. Yeah, so when you go to make a bad decision, your belief, you know, your subconscious mind is going to kick in with those beliefs. Once I made that connection, it was a lot easier to change, because next time I went to go snort a pill, I didn't associate pills with comfort and happiness and a getaway. I associated pills and drugs with heartache, with pain, with turmoil. So I remember playing the last time I relapsed in my head over and over and over again. And the pain was so deep. I just remember like literally just crying in a fetal position on the ground. But if I never made that connection, if I never felt that pain, I never would have changed. So I stopped playing the victim, and, you know, I took accountability for where I was, and I decided to change it. The second concept that really helped me out and helps, you know, a lot of my clients out as well, is getting clear on my vision and taking, you know, massive action to get there. So I remember about 3 years ago, I sat down with, you know, a notebook just like this, and I wrote dozens and dozens of pages of exactly what I wanted my life to look like in detail. You know, because your mind doesn't know, you know, big and small. So you have to be very descriptive in how you detail things. Your mind only knows more. So if you want more money, you know, here's $1. That's more. And I know you've all heard, you know, write your goals down, read them every day. That's how you achieve them. I know it sounds corny, but there's an actual scientific reason as to why they tell you this. There's a part of our brains called the reticular activating system. It has many functions, but one of its functions is to bring your conscious attention and awareness to, you know, what you're focused on or what's important in your life. So it's like, if you ever bought a new car and, you know, over that next week you're driving around, you see the same model car everywhere, drives you crazy. Well, it's not because everybody bought the same car that weekend. It just now your RAS is bringing your conscious attention to that model because it knows it's a part of your life. The same thing happens when you write your goals down and you read them daily. Your brain will start to identify people, places, things, and opportunities that align you with and get you closer to your goals. So your brain can't help you get to a place it doesn't know where it's going. So you constantly have to tell your brain where you're wanting to go, and it will help you identify opportunities to help you get there. So once I, you know, defined my vision and what I wanted, I then had to start taking massive action to get there. But I was just, you know, walked out of a bake rack facility. I was 140 pounds soaking wet. I was a drug addict. My view of myself was not very high. I had no self-confidence, no self-worth. So what does a person do if they have all these big goals and aspirations, but no confidence or belief system to act on them? I simply started small. Started small by keeping like these teeny tiny promises to myself every single day. And by starting small, I meant like little things, waking up at, you know, 4:30 or 5 a.m., going to the gym every day, eating well, keeping my house and my car spotless. By starting small and keeping those promises to myself every single day, I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but coming from a place where I was, it was huge. I started to gain some confidence. I started to build some momentum. And soon I started to shift my belief of who I was and what I was capable of. You know, we all have these self-imposed limitations that we put on ourselves from our belief system of, you know, what we can and what we can't do. But by starting small and slowly breaking through some of those smaller limitations that we have in our mind of things that we can't do, you know, I used to tell myself, I just need 8 or 9 hours of sleep every night. That's just what I need. And if I told myself that that's my belief, that's what I'm going to need. Mm-hmm. But slowly, after waking up, you know, at 4:30 a.m., only on 6 hours of sleep for a month, I was like, damn, that wasn't that hard. Like, I can do this. I wonder what else I could do now. You know, I wonder what else I'm lying to myself about what I can't do, you know? So I started small. I built my confidence. I gained momentum, and I shifted my belief of what I was capable of, you know, one little step at a time. And soon those small action steps turned larger and larger and larger. And soon I was taking massive action. And 3 years after being in a mental health facility, you know, I ended up on a TEDx stage, you know, so change is possible. And if you utilize these concepts, it becomes a lot easier. The third, yeah.
Real quick, I want to just say about that. I relate to that before we go to the third step. When I was first bottoming out from substance use, I was in like my early 20s. I went to like the mountains for 6 months, and just to like recover from the after effects of it. I was sober, but like I couldn't even like do anything. And then over the next 9 months, I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just remember like going to the grocery store was a victory. Doing laundry was a victory. Like just these very like basic things. It was like, I have superpowers, bitch. I got something done today. And it's crazy how incapacitated substance abuse can make you. And one of the main reasons I wanted you to share with these guys is because a lot of the concepts here we talk about in terms of self-development are in relation to getting or attracting women or finding a partner, and also in terms of loving yourself. And the journey of a substance abuse addict to go from the self-harm that they're doing to self-care and self-love is one of the biggest gaps. You know, you have the worst feeling of yourself you can almost ever have as a drug user. And then if you actually do get recovery from it, you have a very, very strong foundation because it actually is strong enough to keep you from using again. So I just remember a lot of these little victories. A lot of guys would see like the results I get now, and some of the stuff you're going to talk about the results you have now, and think like, well, you know, that works for them because, and then they'll give reasons for why that worked for us. You know, maybe people say like, I'm an attorney or something, you know, they'll have reasons they'll say. The truth is like all of us built this very small, one step at a time through and eventually massive action. Yeah. It was a dedication to this shit, to really fixing ourselves. So I definitely relate to what you're saying.
Yeah. You know, I get DMs, texts, and people just ask me all the time, like, what can I do to change? Like, what can I do? Like, it's not just one thing.
Right.
It's not just, like you said, it's the combination. Like success and failure is the result of doing or not doing consistent things every single day. Yep. It's wake up on time today and not hit that snooze button. Did you make that sales call you said you were going to make? You know, did you have that uncomfortable conversation with that friend that you were putting off? Success is directly related to all of those things. And it's like a muscle. You know, once you start taking a little bit of action, you get a little bit of results, you start to build that muscle, you start to gain that confidence. And like you said, the small actions eventually turn into massive action.
Which brings us to visualization, right? That's the third one?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And visualization has been such a powerful tool for me. I can't tell you guys how many things that I have visualized in my head and eventually manifested them in reality. Now, it just doesn't take visualization. You actually have to work towards it as well. So every single morning, I sit out on my patio. I close my eyes for 10 minutes. And first, I envision 3 things that I'm grateful for. So, you know, falling asleep with my son in bed, just, sitting there looking at him, little things, being, out on the ocean, just whatever. I put myself in that situation. I fill my heart with like gratitude and love and thankfulness. And then I focus on 3 things that I want to make happen. So, I envisioned my TEDx talk hundreds and hundreds of times before I even knew that I was going to be on a TEDx stage. Before I even started applying for the talks, I already knew that's what I wanted to do, and I would visualize it, because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between a feeling you get from an actual event in life and a feeling that you get from a visualization in your head.
Yep.
So if you can practice visualization enough, I can bring myself to tears sometimes, imagining buying my mom, a brand new house or a new car, or, giving my kids, or touching, speaking to 100,000 people. Like, I can bring myself to tears sometimes doing that. And that's important because we act in accordance with our feelings. We act how we feel at that specific time. So I didn't wait for, things that happen in the external world to bring me happiness, joy, success, the feeling of love. I created those feelings on my own first thing in the morning. So if you can create those feelings on your own, you will eventually start to act in accordance with those feelings. If you act in accordance with happiness, love, success, abundance, eventually you will manifest, if not exactly what you're visualizing, pretty damn close to what you're visualizing in real life. So again, it's a practice. You have to master it. And it feels weird at first. So don't be critical of yourself. When you first start, if it feels weird, it feels awkward.
When I coach guys, I walk them through visualization as like a vital part of it, but I usually was having them do it at night because I'd read about being a little bit sleepy and how it helps you penetrate to the unconscious more. But I really like the idea of the visualization in the morning for gratitude and love, and then the visualization at night of some of the transformative work and the emotional work you want to see in yourself, like visualizing yourself with different emotions and feelings. I do think there is something to, like, when you're sleepy, being able to rewire your brain better. But there's definitely something to starting your day with this stuff that has to be really powerful, right?
Oh, for sure. Because I'm glad you brought that up to right before you go to sleep, because the time where our subconscious mind, when we go to sleep, our subconscious mind's at the forefront.
Right. That's what dreams are. That's what a dream is. It's just the brain, like, processing its unconscious.
Exactly. So when you go to sleep, your brain goes to work on whatever you're focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
So your subconscious mind is the most active within the first 15 to 30 minutes when you wake up, and the last 15 to 30 minutes before you go to bed. So if you really want to maximize the power of visualization, do it both. Mm-hmm. Do it in the morning and do it at night, right? Within 30 minutes when you wake up and within 30 minutes before you go to bed. Because then again, the main purpose of this is to influence your subconscious mind to change the decisions you're making and the actions you're taking, because your subconscious mind is going to think that you're already living this life of abundance and riches and success. So all of the decisions you make are going to be in accordance with those feelings and those belief systems, rather than coming from a place of scarcity.
It's like when you love yourself, it's just easier to know how to take care of yourself because you're operating from a place of value in yourself. So it's like naturally you're like, well, I'm not going to eat that because that's bad for me. Like instead of having an issue about it or being like, well, I don't eat that thing, it just naturally doesn't occur to you to eat it because you just don't do those things anymore.
Yeah.
You don't hurt yourself that way.
Exactly, man. I'm glad you brought that up because, again, it's just influencing that subconscious mind to where you just don't even want that. You just want to do things that are going to align you with, your mission, your purpose, your passion. So visualization is definitely a huge transformative tool that, anyone should utilize wherever you're at in your life right now, because I believe, the true secret to happiness and success is constant growth, constant progression. No matter how successful you are, if you just, I've made $100 million, I'm going to retire and do nothing now. In a few years, you're going to be fucking miserable.
Yep. Yeah, I always tell people happiness is excitement. There's a type of happiness that's from excitement. It's contentment, meaning things are good regardless. Another big one, though, is accomplishment and actually doing things helps make you happy. And then the last one I think is self-love, which I think they're all tied together, right? Those are kind of false differences, but they're all really powerful parts of it. And like you said, if you don't ever stop growing, if you try to stop growing, you're going to stop accomplishing. You try to rest on just your contentment. You might be content now, but if you just try to rest on, I'm content now, that's going to take me to 80. It's not, it's very unlikely.
Yeah, exactly. So like Ed Milet, I don't know if anybody in the group follows him at all, but he has an amazing story. He has a net worth of like 500 million now. Damn. And what he said is, but he talks about, 15, 20 years ago, showering at his community pool because his water was shut off. He couldn't even pay his water bill 15 years ago. and now he has 500 million in the bank. So he talks about, he talks about this concept of, the person you are today, right now, is perfect, is sufficient, is great, but it will not be sufficient a year from now, 6 months from now. The same person who you are today will not be enough, next month. So like you said, just constantly growth and constant progression is key. The last concept I want to discuss with you guys today, that this last one is probably the most important one, because without this one, all of the other facets of what I discussed wouldn't have been possible. And that's getting active. For me, it's the gym. I love lifting. But if you don't enjoy the gym, just get out and do anything. Walk, run, bike ride, skateboard, swim.
Join a co-ed soccer team.
Yeah, just anything to get your blood flowing a few times a week. The gym, literally, like I said, to that, back to the accountability thing, to building my confidence, that was another promise that I made to myself every day. I was going to get in the gym every single day. And the more promises you keep to yourself, the higher your subconscious belief of yourself is. So if you tell yourself you're going to go to the gym today and you don't, your character just notched down a little bit, but if you do, the belief in yourself, although probably not consciously, becomes stronger. The gym taught me a lot just about life, because I was a broken person at that time. The gym taught me about discipline, work ethic, how to push through pain, consistency. And it really taught me, because it was the first time I had to work hard for something, in my life. As a kid, everything was handed to me. Over the first 10 years, I was kind of barely skating by. And so it really taught me about, hard work and work ethic. And not only did it do that, but with every, physical limitation I broke through, I grew stronger mentally. I grew stronger emotionally. For every single, I only think I can get 2 more, but then I ended up getting 5 more. I'm like, damn, I'm a fucking badass. So, you don't consciously say that, but you start to believe that subconsciously in your head. So at the time, I didn't realize this, but physical activity actually increases neurobrain plasticity by up to 30%. And for those of you who don't know what neuroplasticity is essentially, our brains, as we change, as we develop new habits and drop old ones, the neurotransmitters in our brain, the physical and the chemical structure, literally changes. When you drop an old habit and pick up a new one, your neural pathways, someone stop firing, and you start firing different neural pathways as you change as an individual. So physical activity has been scientifically linked to allowing your brain to make these changes more easily. So that's why change is so uncomfortable. When you say you're going to do something at night, when you say you're going to read for an hour instead of watching Netflix, when you go to do that, it just feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. It's because the chemical and the physical structure of your brain is literally changing, and that's where you get that uncomfortableness from. And a good way to ease that is through physical activity in the gym. The overall message that I just want to share with you guys today is that I couldn't have imagined in my wild and craziest dreams that just 3 years after walking out of a mental health facility, I would be on a TEDx stage delivering a talk to hundreds of people. But I'm not special. I'm not different than anyone else. Anybody can make a decision to change, apply these concepts to their life, and take slow steps each and every day to create true change in their life. So, if you're going through pain right now, if you're going through adversity or a painful situation, instead of asking, why me, take accountability for that pain. Look, pain is a good thing. If you're going through pain or adversity, it's like, so I'm into health, and all the diseases, I like this analogy, all the diseases we get, and if we get an illness or a sickness, it's bad, obviously, but it has a good intention. So every illness that we get is trying to tell us, hey, yo, you're not living right. You're not taking care of your body or your mind the way you need to be taking care of it. So when you get an ulcer, or when you come down with whatever illness it may be, it's your body telling you that you're going too hard, you're too stressed, you're not doing something right in your life. And I'd like to think that God uses adversity for that in regards to, our brains. So if we go through adversity or a painful situation, instead of asking why me, it's God telling you that, hey, you need to learn, you need to get better. I'm shaping you and I'm molding you through this pain, through this experience, but it's up to you to not break down from that adversity. It's up to you to take that adversity, to channel it into greatness, into, a brand new life for yourself. So stop asking yourself, why me? And start asking yourself, how did I get in this situation and what can I learn from it?
Yeah, that's awesome. I always tell people spirituality is for people who have been through hell. Religion is for people who don't want to go to hell. So I don't necessarily have a religious view on it, but
yeah, and I'm sorry to cut you off. If it's not God, then whoever you choose to believe in, your creator, the universe, Allah, whoever it is shaping you and molding you through that pain to make a new and a better you. But again, it's up to you to harness that pain and to take it to make that new, better you, and to not crumble from it.
Yep. There's a book that Malcolm Gladwell wrote. I talked about it yesterday on the conversation with Pierre D'Souza, which guys y'all should check out if you didn't. We talk about basically when that adversity, a lot of times really, really bad trauma breaks people and they don't get better. They get weaker, their immune system dies out, they isolate themselves. Then in isolation, they get sick.
Mm-hmm.
But in a rare individual's case, and someone who is, for whatever reason, able to take that pain and then turn it into fuel for action, they're stronger than they ever would have been. So a lot of men in this group have trauma in some form or fashion that they're working to resolve or overcome to have more confidence and more self-love. And I always tell them that pain is the best thing that's ever happened to you because it's going to let you understand other people better. It's going to let you understand yourself better. It lets you know what being human means. And like you said, it's the furnace for you to get forged in. It's the crucible. It's how you become stronger, more dynamic. Iron sharpens iron. These adverse situations are opportunities for you to grow, even if it's really bad suffering, even if it's unfair. It usually won't be as bad as you think it is because, again, it's how you focus on it, like you said in one of your steps, the first step, how you focus on that stuff. But it's really a good way to understand other people and help you understand yourself.
I couldn't agree more. And if you learn to reprogram your brain to thinking of pain and adversity as a good thing, as learning opportunities, it's going to be a lot easier to overcome those adverse situations anyway, so.
Yeah. Guys, let's open this up for some questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourselves and we'll start it down. Sergio, let's start with you, if you can hear me.
Hey, hello there. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? Very, very happy to be here. Wait
Hey,
one
what's up,
sec.
Sergio? Thanks for joining, man.
Let me see if I can actually even show my face here. Hi, Jimmy. Hey, really love your call, huh? There was like a lot of value delivered there.
Thank you.
So unfortunately, I missed the first part. My connection wasn't working that well. And I really feel I don't have a precise question for you now. So I would like to leave the word to other people if they have something. If something comes up to me, I'll ask you.
Okay, awesome.
Sounds good, buddy.
Awesome. Let's go to, what's up, bro? Pierre, do you have a question? Let me unmute you.
I can't speak right now, sorry.
Awesome. Okay, Tobias or Peter, anybody? And if they don't,
okay.
I'm gonna ask them.
I got one.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. So, you said the visualization are very, very powerful, and I agree with that. One other thing on which we focus a lot here in the community, especially recently, especially with what Social Prime does, is not only visualizing how powerful you are, but also removing the trauma from the past. And I'd like to ask you, Jimmy, if you ever tried to dig down to yourself and re-experience and maybe remove or re-accept the traumas you maybe have had in your life. And if you ever done it, how that affected you?
Well, I don't think removing the trauma is the right answer. It's just about channeling that trauma into something, you know, beneficial, you know, channeling that trauma into a lesson, into learning it. So you never want to forget it and put it behind you, but you don't want to, you know, harp on that trauma either. So, you know, sometimes when I'm feeling down, when I'm feeling depressed, you know, I'll close my eyes and I'll remember that week at my father's house. And I don't want to forget about that time. I don't want to forget about that trauma because it reminds me of how far I've come and, you know, what I'm truly capable of. So I don't think you want to, you know, forget about that trauma. I think you just want to learn how to rechannel that painful energy into productiveness and creating a new belief system for yourself.
And what he's talking about specifically is, so a lot of behavior is unprocessed, unexamined, unconscious trauma. And in that sense, if you don't look at it and go back to it and revisit it, it's shaping you without you meaning for it to. It could be limiting your beliefs in so many ways that you're not aware of. So, you know, when you go back to it and you uncover that connection, a lot of guys talk about like being free from that trauma now. What they're really saying is it's no longer controlling their behavior. And that's the same thing that Jimmy's actually saying. He's saying literally like, it's not controlling my behavior. Now I'm using it as fuel to guide my behavior in a positive way. I'm using it constructively. So it's the same, it's actually the same thing. It just sounds like it's kind of different. You know, you, by definition, when you examine trauma, you are using it to kind of change what you are now. And, you know, you can sometimes go back to a traumatic memory that you had an irrational response to. Like some of these guys are going back to like when they were 1 and they broke their leg and they felt abandoned. And ever since they couldn't love their parents because they felt like their parents weren't there for them. Guys are going really fucking deep on some of this stuff. And so that's like an irrational response. So they needed to go all the way back to the memory and be like, holy shit, my whole life I didn't mean to believe that I was not loved because I was hurt by this one thing I never processed and dealt with, you know? And it can have a big effect, but I actually tend to agree with Jimmy's perspective as well, which is this is all the stuff that is going to make you strong. And if you try to just get past all the pain, you do lose a very relevant reference point for yourself and your growth. And also like a good way to connect other people and understand them as well. Peter, what's up? You got a question?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say thank you, Jimmy, for sharing, because I don't like I always feel inspired to hear about someone who defies the odds. And you say that you aren't special, but I mean, sometimes I think about the statistics for people who end up in drug abuse and never leave. And I've always been fascinated with what makes someone persevere, I suppose, or look for answers. And I just want to chime in. So I'm really happy that you shared what worked for you.
Thank you.
And also I want to just chime in with regards to erasing, so to speak, traumas. The neuroscientific research says that the neural pathways are never broken. Like you build new ones, but the old ones never cease to exist. It's kind of like a path in the woods. Like there can grow some grass over the path, but it's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And so there's no point in trying to erase them. It's like, and I don't think you'd even want to, because you just want to like both Thomas and Jimmy said, there's no point in it. Like it doesn't benefit you to forget them, because if you can harness them, I think it gives you an advantage in many regards. Because like if you think about Jimmy, he wouldn't be able to give a TED talk if he hadn't done that. Like what would he talk about? What story is there to share? What lessons would he have learned if everything had sort of went the way we could have wished for? It's adversity that sort of shapes you, right? And there are a lot of beautiful metaphors to describe the same thing. There's, but basically, I don't think the trauma is the problem. The problem is what you do with it.
Exactly. I couldn't agree more. And, just kind of, build off of your point is, it's all how you shape the trauma in your head. So if you can, like kind of what I said before, if you can learn how to look at painful situations as growing and learning experience rather than, not again. Why me? I'm so unlucky. Like, if that's how you think about trauma, then yeah, it's gonna break you. It's gonna build you down. But you never want to forget it. You want to be able to utilize it and harness it, because if I graduated from college and I took over my father's company and I just started making millions of dollars a few years after I graduated, I would be a self-entitled, not knowing anything about life asshole. Like, I already know, you know. That's how I would be. So I'm so grateful I went through those 8-9 years of pain and adversity that seemed like it was never going to end. And I was able to overcome it to turn that into a new person. You know, I went on vacation with my family, like extended family, aunts and uncles, and they couldn't like believe the person I was just, 2-3 years before. 2-3 years before, I was blacking out at my 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the beach, and so they just really couldn't believe it, and it wouldn't have been possible without that adversity.
And just a final point on that, and then Derek, looks like you got something you want to say. What happens when the brain experiences powerful traumatic things is it kind of makes a groove in your brain. It makes these neural pathways that become kind of like a habit or a pattern for your mind. So now energy more naturally goes through that part of your brain. But there's lots of different ways, including just a really funky one I'll tell you guys about briefly. If you just take something like this in front of your eyes and you move it like this while you think about things, because you're using different parts of your brain just as you move your eyes, you'll think about things differently. Just try it sometime. It literally, you'll rewire your brain and your thinking by just now you're like, picture a really fucking horrible event, like the most traumatic picture the worst thing ever, and then move your eyes while you do it. Like, take some really painful memory for you that hurts you, and now look at it while you move your eyes around, and you'll feel it won't hurt you as much because you'll be using different parts of your brain when you think.
Yeah, because you're
rewiring it.
Yeah. Tommy, have you ever heard Mel Robbins?
No.
All right. For anyone that doesn't know who she is, I would recommend just go look up her Instagram page, or she has a website. And she talks about this thing that she kind of stumbled across accidentally when she was about to go bankrupt. Her whole life was falling apart and she could barely drag herself out of bed. She started this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Before she does anything, she just counts 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 in her head or out loud, and then just takes action. Just wakes up out of bed, just takes action, because so many times we have an idea, we have a thought, and whether we want to speak up in a meeting or go talk to that girl over there at the bar, whatever it may be,
right.
We had this idea, and then there's a part of our brain that goes, well, what if yada 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 happens? And then we're like, not a good idea. But if you're able to, just the point you were saying, activate that other part of your brain by counting backwards, it shuts off that other part of your brain that's trying to talk you out of it.
Yeah, we call that a pattern interrupt. It's just interrupting the pattern of you talking yourself out of it.
Exactly. You're running a program, and it's interrupting the program that you're running.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. What's up, Derek? You got a question for us?
So I'm at a place where I recently got out of the military, and I realized a lot of combat trauma, but that kind of led me to realize more of the childhood trauma. So dealing with that, kind of processing all the new things, and it brings on new experiences. My question is, how did you deal with like family? Like, I know you said you had the issue with your dad. I too have that issue, but overall, how do you deal with people whose beliefs are completely different, but there's somebody you would like to, they're people that you would still want to keep relations with?
You mean like emotionally unhealthy relationships?
I'm sorry?
Do you mean like emotionally unhealthy relationships?
Yes.
Yeah.
But without being judgmental about it.
Right.
And destroying the relationship.
Gotcha. Well, first of all, Derek, thank you very much for your service, man. And all of your dedication to this country. But like I said, with my father, his belief systems are just completely different. When I hang out with him, he's like, here, have a beer. I'm like, no, Dad. I was like, oh, stop being a fucking pussy. Just so it's a fine line to where, and sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to where you just have to cut people out of your life. But if you don't want to cut them completely out of your life, you can just, keep them at an arm's distance. You don't have to be best friends with them and talk to them every single day. You don't have to pick up every time they call you or answer every single text message, but you can still keep that line of communication open, because I still love my father. I still miss him. But after hanging out with him for an hour or two, I'm about to shoot myself in the head. So I know now, how he is. And I've tried to have deep and meaningful conversations with him to try and get him to shift his perspective and to shift his belief system and how he acts. But unfortunately, some people you just can't get through to. And you can't take it as your responsibility to change anybody else. You can't put, your worth or your value into, trying to get someone else to see your perspective. So my best advice would be, if you don't want to cut them out of your life completely, which sometimes, depending on how toxic they are in your life, sometimes you have to make that difficult decision. But if you don't, there's different things you can do just to keep them at an arm's length, but still keep that line of communication open.
For me, when you're talking about childhood traumas, it gets complicated in a sense because a lot of times family are around those or related to those or maybe even cause those. So first of all, if they've made an effort to change from how they were, let's say they were physically abusive, but now they're not, that's relevant versus if they're still that way, right? If they're still that way, I'd say, listen, that sounds like it's toxic. I wouldn't touch it, like Jimmy said. If it's someone that's reformed and realizes they've made an error and just wants to move past it, okay, you can try to find some bridges there. A lot of times what happens in certain communities is there's a stoicism. So you are taught to not feel your feelings. You're taught to be very tough. You're taught to be hard, And so just even talking about emotions in certain cultures or in certain families can be thought of as weakness. Or people are like, what the fuck are you on about? They think being tough is what being healthy is. But being tough isn't being healthy. That's just putting pressure on yourself. Being tough is just putting pressure on yourself. That's a fake toughness. Real toughness is being able to talk about what the fuck you're feeling with other people. Real toughness is being able to say, this is how I feel right now. That's what real strength looks like, when you say, this is how it is. So, and you can still love other people and care about other people, but you also care about yourself. So don't have fake toughness. Don't have the fake stoicism that comes from that. Instead, the real toughness is saying what you really feel to people. And also, we talked about this in the last call, having boundaries, right? So I'm not going to let you talk to me that way. Or I don't appreciate it when you try to dismiss me when I'm saying how I'm feeling. Or you try to minimize the stuff I'm going through. I don't like that. You can say things like that to people. And if you keep doing it to my face, I'm not going to talk to you. You can put up whatever boundaries you want to be treated. Just know how you want to be treated. Know how to say that to other people, and know how you're going to enforce that if they violate it. Have that mind in your head already. So a lot of emotional communication, healthy emotional communication, and a lot of growth from you is going to come when you understand that you're stronger by feeling your feelings, and you're stronger by being yourself. But you're strongest when you're willing to feel your feelings, but you're also taking active steps to fix and influence those feelings. So instead of pretending to be something you're not feeling, like pretending to be confident when you're not, that's weakness. That's fake shit. The next step above that, that's way better, is I can feel my feelings. The most elite step is I'm actively influencing my feelings by helping my unconscious, my subconscious get stronger and help me grow to be better. That's like the top level. And so once you're doing those things, your relationships with other people will get easier, and you'll be able to talk to them on more genuine levels. That's my advice for that. And that, whether they're family or not, all that means is you just have more of an emotional response to them. You could have a powerful emotional response to a stranger, and it would be similar. It's just that family typically has stronger emotional responses. But you should follow the same principles of healthy communication that you normally would. And like Jimmy said, if it's toxic, fucking bail, because that violates your values and is against your boundaries. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Jonathan, Tobias, any of you guys have a call? Peter, you have another question? If not, I'm going to ask a couple, but I want to hear from y'all if you do.
Hey, so Tom.
Okay, Michael, go for it.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as it is just like a reflection.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how you said that it helps to have boundaries and know what they are, and also to like voice that to people. Because like with Derek, I believe you said about your family. I just discovered that my ex-girlfriend has BPD, and it's great to have boundaries and then also be able to relate to the other person and say, you can't treat me this way, but here's how you can treat me, and then be able to step back. So with my relationship, I have to come from a place of, loving from afar and checking in whenever things are appropriate. But having boundaries is definitely important. Being able to convey to the other person how they should treat you on a constant basis, that's key. Just wanted to note that.
Jimmy, you got any advice on boundaries and emotionally communicating with people, or maybe even with your girlfriend or women, or things you've done in your relationships?
Yeah, so I like, to respond instead of reacting to things. A reaction is emotionally driven, and, a response, you actually have put some thought into how you're going to react. So, people are going to upset you and piss you off all the time. But instead of getting that text message or calling, just being like, that motherfucker, and, and responding right away, take a step back for a second, try to understand, where that person is coming from, and think about the best way to react, not to just fight and argue, but to come to a resolution to the conflict that you have, with this person. Because typically the thing that's making you upset right now, there's a deeper rooted cause in your relationship as to, why you're going through the current situation. So if you can take a step back and respond instead of react, it'll have a huge difference on all of your relationships if you can learn how to do that, all the time. And sometimes, when you're face to face, you have to react, but the more you step back and learn how to respond, it'll become more of a learned behavior and you'll get better at it.
I like that a lot, because everybody's had the fight with the girlfriend that wasn't over the dishes, but was seemingly over the dishes, but really was about the fact that you weren't giving them affection like you should have been, or checking up with them, or you didn't call them to see how they were doing one day. Or maybe it really was over the dishes like 20 times built up. So that goes back to a deeper issue of like, are you going to be the man you say you are? Yeah, I love that. When I think about the best advice I give in terms of relationships with anybody is understand your emotions and where you're coming from, what your feelings are, and what you want from how you want to behave, how you want to treat other people. And then I always tell people to show themselves to others so others will show themselves to you. So for example, a woman needs to be vulnerable to sleep with you. She's going to feel vulnerability to have sex with you. It's just a truth, unless there's a very, very small subset of women that have like almost a sociopathic sexual drive, but that's very, very rare, that don't experience it as vulnerability. But for most women, it's a vulnerability. So you need to show your vulnerability to them. You need to show, and I just call vulnerability just feeling your feelings. What's more vulnerable than being what you really are in that moment? That's the definition of vulnerability. I'm really being me. I'm being raw with you. So I'm being vulnerable right now. It doesn't mean talking about the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It means I'm just being myself. By you doing that, you invite them to show you who they are. Once you see who they really are, you can very gently and easily understand their emotions, their feelings, where they're coming from, and now you can react and interact with them on that level. So the easiest way for you to get permission to have your feelings be good in the relationship and be respected and be appreciated for your emotions is to make it good for the other person, to have their feelings and their emotions respected and their needs met. And people that do that to one another, it doesn't have to be all, spelled out. It can be just through respect. It can be just through being thoughtful. It can be just through being empathetic. A lot of times as a man to a woman, it's done through touch. There's a lot of reassurance that comes from just like putting your arm around someone or giving them a kiss. So anyways, the point is when you make yourself open to someone else, they become open up to you. And that will really help with the feelings part of it. Now, when you make yourself open and somebody treats you in a way that's not acceptable, that's where your boundaries come in. And that's when you're like, look, I'm telling you right now, that's not okay. And if you do that again, this is what's going to happen. So
I just want to add,
yeah.
I've even before. So I did an immersion for social prime, who they talk a lot about honesty and well, radical honesty. Say whatever comes to your mind, basically. Not whatever comes to your mind, but what like the thing that you feel
really
the most.
Feel. Yeah.
Yeah. And for some reason, like, I don't know if it's this where I was born and raised, but we're quite
Peter,
trusting,
you're gonna have to,
but not
you're gonna
everyone
have
is
to
as
rewind a
trusting.
second, Peter, because you're cutting out.
Naive, very, very, very trusting towards other people, and very almost to the
Peter.
extent that some would.
Peter, hold up. You cut off for like 20 seconds of that.
I'm just going to turn on my Wi-Fi and see if that helps.
Okay. Yeah, because I really want to hear that point. I'm interested to hear your thoughts about the radical honesty. You literally said I learned radical honesty on the social prime immersion. Jimmy, an immersion is where guys will pay a couple $1,000s and go live with, you know, some of these experts that for a couple weeks will just give them very focused, like almost all day long, attention on emotional issues or talking to women. They'll put them in approach after approach after approach of hot girls, or make them go deep back into their past and really dig up a lot of the painful stuff they've been through to try to understand it better. So he's going to give a response to him doing that with one of the companies that I happen to like.
Yeah. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. So even before I heard of social prime, I mean, I've become even more honest now, but I was always quite honest and vulnerable, and I had no trouble sharing what I felt. And for some weird reason, nobody has ever taken advantage of me. Like, I've never gotten screwed over for being honest about my feelings. That doesn't mean that transferring responsibility, because that's a different thing. Like, with regards, for example, I've been kind of I wouldn't say unlucky, but irresponsible when it comes to protection during sex, trusting the other person. So if there's a responsibility involved, you should try to take responsibility. But with regards to sharing your emotions, I've never, ever been screwed over or never laughed at for saying how I felt. Never like been humiliated or never. I mean, that doesn't mean it always works out in my favor or the way that I wished it would have been. But it in many cases, I think it's worked out better because I said exactly what I felt and wanted or feared. So that's just my input, is that, like, being vulnerable is, and it's like, regardless of, I know that strength is a word that we men want to live up to, or like vulnerability is strength. I don't see it as, it doesn't, well, it's very, very, it is a strong trait, but more than that, it's also like, what is effective? What brings you a better life? Is it one where you try to be a certain person and ultimately have to live a lie until, like, you bury your real self under some front? Like, I don't think it's going to make you happy. Of course you can tweak some things, or you can focus on things, like Jimmy said. You can focus on what's important and what you want to do, like, rather than hitting the snooze button, you can focus on what's important. And that's the same goes for an interaction with a woman. You can focus on how much you're enjoying it, or you can focus on how worried you are. And that's a thing you have to train, like your mental focus. But that's another topic. I just want to say that vulnerability has served me, I would say.
Can we talk about a little bit about the fighting and emotionally what that was like for you? What was that coming from?
What fighting?
I'm talking to Jimmy.
Oh.
I'm going off of what you're saying, and I'm asking him.
Like the physical fighting, like from my father?
Yeah. Because so for example, with me, my dad died when I was 4. I was an angry fucking kid. I didn't take any shit. If somebody mouthed off even once, it was an adult, I'd fucking punch him. I hit people with bats. Like, I was fucking off the chain. And I know you had a very similar type of, like, aggression in you. It came from pain for me. And I didn't like feeling vulnerable back then. If somebody made me feel my feelings, I was like, fuck you, motherfucker, what's up? I don't want to feel those feelings. I'm not comfortable with my feelings right now. Yeah. So you're making me feel shit right now. Fuck you. You might make me feel scared. You might make me feel angry. I don't know what it is, but I'm not happy with this. We might have to fight over this. Now, that I was much younger. I got past that. But I wanted to bring that up with you because I think you and I probably had a similar stage with violence, even though mine was probably at a younger age than yours.
Yeah, so I fought a lot in middle and high school. And at that time, it wasn't because of the pain. It's because I was trying to live up to my father and impress my father. You know, I would see him getting bar fights, as a teenager, and knock out 250, 300-pound dudes. Like, he was a professional boxer, when he was younger in his life. And, he would fight people just for looking at him the wrong fucking way. So I thought that's how men were supposed to be. Like, that's what my belief was. Like, if you're a man, if you're a real man, you don't let anyone fuck with you. So, I was a very aggressive kid. As a middle school, as a teenager, constantly suspended, kicked out of school, all that stuff. But, when it was with my father, I still have deeply rooted issues with trying to seek my father's approval.
Yeah.
Even though I know, like, consciously, I tell myself, like, I don't need it. He's sick. He's never going to give me what I am looking for from him. No matter how much I tell and that's something I'm still working through. That's something I'm still trying to grow from and learn from, because
you and I will talk about that we'll have a private call about that. I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah, because I honestly do need some help and some people to walk me through, how to manage, your father literally kicking your front door and off your house and coming to fucking physically fight you. The guy who's supposed to care for you and love for you and protect you is trying to kill you, essentially. And it's a pretty messed up feeling. And that's why I think my partying really took off after that, because I felt so abandoned. I felt unloved. I felt unworthy. Like, why doesn't he love me? I wasn't consciously thinking these things. Like, why doesn't my father love me? What do I have to do to get his love? But
you were feeling it, though.
Yeah, exactly. I was feeling it. I wasn't consciously aware of those. I wasn't self-aware of shit back then.
Right.
Now, if I'm feeling something, if I lash out at my kids, like, hey, stop doing it, and they yell, I don't usually yell at them. If I do, I take a step back for a second, like, whoa. They're 4 and 2 years old, so they obviously don't listen a lot, So I'm like, why they didn't listen is not why I just yelled. Like, what am I really upset about? What am I really angry about? So, self-awareness is key, and I wasn't self-aware at that time. I'm self-aware now that that's how I was feeling back then, and that's still how I feel sometimes. So,
and let me ask you this: how does that relate to boundaries, in the sense of, like, now when men treat, like, before, if somebody treats you some type of way, okay, we're going to fight over this. Now, how do you handle those same situations?
The thing is, it's crazy when you're not out there looking for them. Those situations come to you a lot less.
Yeah.
Right?
Way less.
When you're not out there, like, it just seemed constantly. I was always getting in fights, always getting in scruffles, always having, these little, whatever it was, arguments, because I was looking for them. I was focused on them.
You were putting out and getting back what you were putting out.
Exactly. The law of attraction. I essentially wanted. So over the last 3 years, man, I really haven't had many circumstances,
where you've been disrespected.
To where, I was able to disrespect it. But sometimes, like, in those moments, about 2 years ago, maybe a little less, and I'm not proud of this moment. I shouldn't have done it. But I'm at the Bank of America, or at Wells Fargo, and I'm in line, and I forgot a deposit slip. So I told there was like a 20-year-old skater kid behind me, probably about 140 pounds soaking wet. I get out of the line, I go get a deposit slip, and I walk back in front of him. And he goes, hey, man, I was here. And I was like, I told you I was getting a deposit slip. And he's like, I don't give a fuck what you were doing. And I was just like, whew, I just, again, I was like, all right, Jimmy, you can't get in a fight in a fucking bank. I'm like, calm down. So I'm like, you know what, man? Fine. Go there. I said something like, I'm like, just know if this was the old me or another day, I'd beat your fucking ass. Or I said something like that. And he goes, oh, yeah? And he steps right up to me, and I just, boom, I fucking shoved him. He almost fell over the counter in the Bank of America. He comes back and swings at me, actually barely catches me. And I knew this is, again, he's like 145 pounds. And I'm like, man, but I was able to recompose myself. I was able to be like, fuck, Jimmy, you're in a bank right now. Like, if you throw a punch back, like, you're going to jail. That's a guaranteed. So I amazed myself by being able to take a step back and to yeah, I made a bad decision about shoving him. I shouldn't have done that. But again, you know, I'm a man. I'm not gonna.
He invaded your space anyways.
I'm not gonna let people disrespect me. Bottom line. And if it was another environment, if we were at Chipotle instead of the bank, I probably would have knocked him the fuck out. But again, I'm glad I didn't. The cops ended up coming and everything. He was already gone. He ran. But since I didn't retaliate, you know, I wasn't in any trouble. And when I told the story to my friends, they're like, I can't believe you did that. Like, you didn't.
That you didn't fight him at the end. That you were able to that you were able to calm back down.
Yeah, exactly. So again, if you're not out there looking for those situations, you attract a lot less of them. But when they do come about, and again, I still struggle with this after that experience, because if my father was that experience, I would be a fucking pussy. I would be not a man because I didn't do what he thought the right thing was to do. But I got 2 kids. It was a Friday. I had a job to go back to. If I was a man and fought a guy in a bank, I would have got arrested. I would have probably got fired from my job. I was supposed to pick my kids up from school that day. I obviously wouldn't have done that. I was in a custody battle at the time. She could have used that as I'm an aggressive, violent person.
What I find is the people who have been in the most fights are the ones who come to find that violence is usually the wrong answer. It's almost never the answer unless you're protecting someone or yourself.
Yeah.
But it's weird because there's an emotional element to violence, and then there's like a pragmatic element. Like the emotional element is what you said, like, well, if someone puts you in fear of danger, like there's a practical element to it. But you know, the kind of violence of trying to prove something with violence is stupid, you know, and not necessary. And you can do through words or just being aloof and not caring. Like, because here's what I don't like to do. I don't like to give assholes power over my emotions. Like, I didn't come in here wanting to punch this human being, so he's not going to make me want to punch him now. Unless he puts me in danger or really does something to a woman that I'm with or my family. I'm not going to give him that power over me. But it is an interesting thing because we talk about boundaries in this group, and every man in here is going to have to draw that line in their own place. For me, I value my emotional integrity to myself. Nobody's going to move me. Not a woman, not a beautiful woman that I walk up to, not a supermodel, not my Playboy model girlfriend who's awesome, not a fucking jackass in a line. But every now and then, like Jimmy said, you can slip up, and you got to be careful because sometimes it sounds bad to say, but sometimes I'm itching for a fight just a little bit, maybe, like, I don't know, and you got to watch yourself on those moments. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on that. And but in terms of boundaries, I don't want to give somebody emotional power over me to move me or make me react. You know, I want to respond, not react.
It really makes you weak, I think, Tommy.
Exactly. And when I used to have my shortest fuse,
you're big and bold, but no, it makes you fucking weak.
When I used to have my shortest fuse, when I was getting in fights every week, I was the weakest I've ever been. I couldn't have a fucking feeling of anger for a half second. I couldn't feel sad for a half second without having to fight somebody. I couldn't handle a single feeling I had of intensity. That's about as weak as you can be. And I was fighting constantly. And as I got more accepting and more loving of myself and more comfortable just with myself as a man, whatever I am, as good, bad, whatever, but it's me and this is what I am. Now they can't move me. Now I don't feel like fighting them. I don't have a reason to want to hurt them. Unless they, like, if somebody attacked one of you guys and I'm like, no, fuck that. I don't like bullies. Like, that's the one thing is I never fought somebody smaller than me. I always fought bigger people picking on other people or picking on me. I don't like bullies. But I've learned even with bullies, the better way to be is, like, a bully is a coward usually. So your confidence can erode the energy of a bully quick just by being more confident in them. Like, you go watch, in this group, there's something called amogging. They call it alpha. It's like basically just trying to be so alpha over a dude that you just make him walk away. And so guys in this community that aren't really fighters and actually aren't really that aggressive at all will go do some really bold shit to, like, really tall, big, muscular dudes and just make them fucking walk away from, like, hot chicks. And I definitely respect that a lot more than, you know, trying to take it to another level for no reason, because you don't have anything to prove. None of you men have anything to prove to yourself. Even if you have a desire to be physically aggressive and you like fighting and stuff, go fucking join an MMA gym. You can get that shit out there. I used to go to an MMA gym. It helped bring me back some of my masculine energy I had inside. I liked that. So that's my advice for that. Jimmy, last question. How has your relationships improved as you've made this transformation? Do you find that you're more emotionally honest with your girlfriend, with other people? And, how has the response from other people been as you become that? Because, we talk about when drug abuse, you're dishonest a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I tarnish a lot of relationships, and most of those relationships I've been able to, rebuild that trust and rebuild that love within the relationship. But with my girlfriend, we're actually not together anymore.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a single father, and we still have a good relationship. But being able to be, emotionally honest and emotionally stable, allows me to effectively communicate how I feel now, instead of, yeah, I'm just angry and let me scream and yell for no reason and don't convey what's actually truly going on inside. So, what I said before, it starts with self-awareness and being aware of, how the other person is making you feel and what did they do to make you feel that way. If you can't identify your feelings, and if you can't identify what that person did to make you feel that way, how are you going to communicate it, and how can they ever change it? They can't. So that's been huge in my relationships, is just being able to be self-aware of, hey, Julie, when you did this last week, it really hurt me. And this is how I felt. And again, I respond that way. I don't react that way in the moment, because if I react in the moment, it's going to be, what the hell? Why'd you do that? Da, 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 da. And that doesn't accomplish anything. So I think it's key to be self-aware of why you're feeling a certain way, what they did to make you feel that way, and be able to communicate to them. And if you communicate to them a few times and they don't change the behavior, and it keeps on happening over and over again, you might have to move on from that relationship. If they can't change and if they make you feel a certain way. And some people get addicted to those negative feelings. You don't consciously say, I want to feel that way again. But again, we're running these programs, and some people get addicted to those feelings, and they just get in like a self-perpetuating cycle.
So lastly, how has dating improved for you then, as you've gotten healthier and come to this point?
I wish I haven't dated much. I actually went on a date on Saturday, this last Saturday. No real connection or anything like that. It was a good time, but I'm actually
you put yourself so much ahead of it. It sounds like that used to be the women used to be something that you use as like a superficial measure of your success.
Yeah, like how many girls did I get with this last month?
Right.
Because my value was tied up in how many girls I slept with.
Right.
Exactly. So now that it's not, I'm not out there seeking meaningless relationships. Although to have a girl that was a booty call at this point in time may be nice.
Right.
I'm not saying I don't want it, but I'm not out there seeking it. I'm not out there looking for that.
You're not sacrificing your personal development to get.
Yeah, exactly. If something comes into my life, and if I meet a girl, at the grocery store, at the gym, and we end up clicking, great. I'm not going to not pursue it. But I'm at a point right now too where I'm not going to go on Bumble and Tinder and spend an hour or two every day swiping and messaging to try and find someone, because right now I'm focused on myself. I'm focused on rebuilding everything that I messed up for a decade. I'm focused on my business. I'm focused on my kids. And if something happens, great. And I know now, though, I was actually thinking about this the other day, Thomas, that I treated every girlfriend I had like shit, like absolute shit. I never put them first. I cheated on every single girlfriend I've ever had. And again, I just thought that's what men were supposed to do. That's how my father was to my mother. And, so I tied my self-worth up in all of those things. But if I were to get in a relationship now, you know what I mean? It sounds cocky, but she would be one lucky girl, because I'm so confident and self-aware and I know who I am. I'll be able to actually give my full self to someone else now, and I won't be seeking any external validation, from them or anything else.
Yep.
So
you won't have any neediness to you.
Any neediness, like at all, At all, exactly. So I actually can't wait until I get in another actual relationship again, because I actually feel that I would have a lot of value to add, and I can't wait to put someone else first at times. But right now in my life, while trying to build my business and trying to, raise my kids and, get, like I said, my company off the ground, it's just not the right time to do that quite yet. But if it happens, it happens. I'm not going to give up on it, though.
And lastly, if anybody here in the call or in the group wants to do any kind of work with you and any kind of coaching, is that something you're into?
Yeah, definitely. I do have a coaching program. You can connect with me either via my website, which is jimmydefalco.com, DEFALCO. You can also connect with me on Instagram or Facebook as well. Just shoot me a follow, DM me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Or Facebook, I'm Jimmy DeFalco. Instagram, I'm Jimmy_DeFalco. Again, DEFALCO. I got, a 45-minute free consultation call. We'll hop on the phone. We'll discuss what you're going through and, how I could possibly help your situation.
Awesome, man. All right, guys. Any last questions or anything, or is that good?
One last thing, too. Sorry.
Sure.
I also have a podcast. It's available on Apple, Spotify, anywhere who plays podcast. Jimmy D Radio. Just search that, or the link is in on my website or my bio in my Instagram account. So sorry to cut you off, Tommy, but yeah, Jimmy D Radio. Check out the podcast. My whole life story in detail is the episode 1, and then I kind of talk about different concepts that I've been able to use. I actually got a new episode coming out this afternoon.
I appreciate the enthusiasm, actually, and I'll hopefully be on that show soon as well, so y'all can catch me on that.
Yeah, I'll be having Tommy on the show in the next week or two. So definitely, you guys check that episode. I'm sure to be filled with a lot of value.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, have a good one, everybody. Any questions you can ask in the group chat. We'll get it over to Jimmy, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.